Trap Media USA. We back, wake and bake boxing and the culture. Hope everybody out there doing good, having a good day, enjoying work. What is it, 10:24 Eastern time, and I wanted to get back to something that we started over here. If you look up early pound for pound lists on YouTube, it was a point where I think it was like HBO, ESPN, and Ring, and it was just a bunch of lists out there that I felt like um black fighters were misrepresented. So that's why, I want to say 3 4 years ago, I did the first pound for pound list. So I definitely wanted to get back to it. I think we at a point where everything is clear now. So I didn't just want it because so much just kept changing with the 54 division, with 147, with Keith Thurman moving in and out, Kell Brook moving up, Kovalev losing, Hurd. It just was so much shifting. It was kind of unclear of certain placement. Like certain guys still stayed, but a lot of stuff kept shifting. So that's why I really took my time before I came back and did another list. But a lot of the criteria from the old videos still stayed the same. Things like who you're fighting, how you look against guys that other top guys have fought. So, for example, Earl was always high on the list because even before he got those top matchups, he was doing better against Bundu than Thurman. He was doing better against Algieri than Pacquiao. I always give fighters credit for a racer. That's why Wilder was always high on the pass list because in any division, if you have a punch like that, it's a no brainer what's going to happen. Some things that I added this year to the criteria was avoiding matchups. We have moved in a time in boxing where a lot of fighters are maneuvering, and although you may have heard me on different occasions, salute guys like Canelo and stuff like that. You have to understand that to a certain extent, when we're doing these shows, don't get the if you've been following for a while, you know where I stand pretty much on everything. And if you really want to see the roots and what's all the way concrete as far as my perspective, then you just go back to that. When you watch First Take, Stephen A is majority of his perspective, but you always put a little sauce on. Like, you don't want to have a show all the time where everybody is agreeing, and you have a saturated market of YouTube boxing. And if you, especially with our community, it's like if you just constantly hearing the same thing over and over again, then to me it's like sometimes you want to stand into a different perspective and argue a different perspective than you may have in the past. But traditionally over here, when I'm just on my channel, I don't. Um, it's more so just concrete and straight to the roots of things. But sometimes things do get mixed up a little bit, and that's not for. At the end of the day, this is all boxing. I may see things one way, you may see things another way, and just know that's cool. But that's as far as this is just like in politics, just like with shoes or anything else. We don't have to agree on everything, but just know it's boxing, and to a certain extent, these shows it's entertainment. But yeah. So how you looked against other top guys? Do you have an eraser? Skill, but skill, see, I think a lot of pound for pound list only factors skill, and for me is one piece, but we have to see that skill tested against other top opposition, or at least a comparative lens. Early when I was doing it, Lomachenko was on the other major pound for pound list with 9 fights. My criteria has always been, unless you're doing something like super exceptional, I want you to have at least 15 fights before you're on the list. Um, Undisputed didn't really hold too much weight. That's why, like the first one I did, Bud wasn't on there because y- uh, it's the same thing. It's not the knock Crawford. It's just I have to see you against a certain level of guys. So if a division has Isaac Cruz, Maxi, what's his name, Maxi Hughes, some other guys y'all don't respect, Maxi Hughes, let's say Callum Smith and a Liam, guys like that. Say that's a whole division, whatever division you want to make it. If it's a bunch of guys like that and you beat those guys in undisputed, I'll give you credit for staying disciplined, and I'll give you kind of like if this was 2K, like a anti Mike Tyson badge, because you can go out there and get, or we can call it the anti Teofimo Lopez badge, because you can go out there and lose to a opponent that on paper you're not supposed to lose to. So I do give fighters respect, and I think that that's something new. The anti. So I do give you respect to a certain extent, but it's not like that's going to just automatically jump you up. Now, in the case of like a Usyk, going up in the undisputed didn't never really give him credit for me because a lot of those guys that he beat weren't too great. But going to heavyweight and beating a big heavyweight, a big skilled gold medalist heavyweight that on a lot of people's list was considered the best in the world between him, Wilder, and Fury. That's a big achievement for me. Um, in and out the ring. You know, how are you as a fighter? That's a criteria. How are you? Are you staying in shape? Are you just doing a lot that will take away from the sport? Some of the Sean Porter standards. Are you fighting the top guys? Even if you losing didn't knock you on my list either in the past. So say for like Sean Porter, Keith Thurman. Sean Porter never really got a knock for losing to Keith Thurman because I feel like he won that fight. So if it's a one of those debatable fights or a classic, you don't really lose too many points. Danny Jacobs, Triple G. Danny Jacobs didn't really lose too many points, in my opinion. Triple G Canelo first fight. Triple G didn't really lose too many points in regards to a pound for pound in the early list. And I'm trying to think of anything else. Big performances. When you do get these big matchups, this is like a this may be wait. This would be like a 3 pointer. How do you perform in those matchups? And another thing I added is your dimensions. So you might be on a similar level as a guy like we seen with Terrence Crawford, Sean Porter, but your dimensions are just you have more reach. You're the taller fighter, but the skills are at the same level. And if we shrunk y'all down to the same reach, and we build y'all up to the same reach, and we build y'all up to the same, how would you perform if you had Sean, if you reversed the roles? So that's something that I want to take advantage to, because I feel like if you gave Terrence Crawford Sean Porter's reach and Sean Porter height, and Sean Porter's Terrence Crawford reach and his height, keep the skill the same, it's a blowout fight. Um, but that's not a knock. That's just something that I like to, you know, when we playing out all of these scenarios, I like to really look at everything. So it's more, I just, let's just get more right into the list. So as we said, with Usyk moving up, doing what he did against AJ, um, and then I factor in the undisputed because of what he did against AJ. So it can be a extra thing when you go do something great like that, and that checks off that big matchup box. How do you perform in a big matchup? He excelled with flying colors. Number two, Canelo, staying consistent in and out the gym, being able to move through different weight classes. A lot of guys, some people don't hold Danny Jacobs to the highest regards. I respect Danny Jacobs. Caleb Plant is one of the best fighters in boxing, in my opinion, especially after I don't think most of these guys on my top 10 or almost top tens. Get in there with Canelo and perform the way that Caleb Plant did. I felt like he was thoroughly controlling the fight and just doing his thing. He showed it all. It's just at the end, he slipped up a little bit. But for a guy like Canelo, he stays ready. He stays poised. He doesn't panic. Um, Solid power, solid all around skill. He checks that mark. Only thing people would say he would lack is footwork, but he finds a way to get it done in multiple weight classes. Triple G second fight, I like that. Laura fight, debatable. Billy Joe, give him a lot of credit for that. Billy Joe's a very skilled fighter. Um, yeah, so Canelo's number two. Number three, I believe in either one or my first or second pound for pound list was Earl Spence. And I wouldn't be mad at putting Earl Spence number two, but um just the skill, it always, as before his performances against guys before he became the guy against other top guys fought, but even like a Danny Garcia, we hadn't really seen. We seen Danny beaten like a Herrera. I had Lamont beating him, but we seen Sean Porter, we seen Keith Thurman, but we haven't seen him pummel like that. Danny looked very bad after that fight, and to come off an accident and to have a performance like that, it's just spectacular. Um, Spence is not running from anything. He always wants the big matchups. He says the right thing. Conducts himself properly in that regard. A big box office guy, has done a lot for the Dallas area all around. I like stuff like that too. When I'm putting together a pound for pound list, what are you doing for the sport? And when we speak of guys like Spence, does a lot for the black community. um Olympian, and he's one of those guys that can have shown to be able to consistently fight through adversity and stay at the high level. So regardless of lifestyle choices that people may complain about, he's always found a way to stay on top. So I wouldn't be mad at putting Spence number three, and I have Usyk before, especially because he hasn't had any like rehydration clauses, and I don't think Usyk has either, and that's another reason why I have him over Canelo. I think the AJ hurdle was a little bit bigger than a lot of the battles that Canelo has fought, but it's not like he had a rehydration clause where AJ couldn't get up to a certain weight, or it's not like Spence has a clause. So I really could put Spence number two and Canelo number three. I think that's how I have it. Number four, Terrence Crawford, another one of those guys. Well, he's typically been bigger in the smaller divisions. His first big fight to a guy that we would say was on his level, Showtime Sean Porter, one of the pound for pound best in my eyes. Didn't put him on this list because he's retired. I like saying with Canelo, Crawford can be getting outdone in a matchup, and he just stays ready, whether he's getting outboxed or whatever the situation. If he's like, we seen a classic video of him being down on the cards and him flipping the switch and going out there to get it done, consistent understanding of foot placement and making fighters that are typically mentally strong like Sean Porter panic when they typically don't do that, and going out there and getting that stoppage. I give Crawford credit for that. I like the postal win. I like the Gamboa win, and both of those are wins that you could say age good because of how Postal looked against Ramirez and how Gamboa did against Tank with the injury. So salute to Terrence Crawford. Snow Knock being number four. I know it's a lot of Bud fans out there that would probably disagree, but uh, be, being in being in the top five is definitely no slight in a very good time in boxing. I would say a lot of people always harping on the golden era, but I think a lot of these guys could match up. They're just maybe not be as maybe they're not as consistent, and maybe they aren't as hungry. And it's just different times. But if you put them in that era under the same circumstances, I think some of these guys could definitely thrive. Number 5, Tyson Fury. Uh, you beat a great like Deontay Wilder, man, with that eraser. A former two-time on my pound for pound list, top 2 or 3. It's between him and Spence, I believe, in the past. Just the all-around skill set, he checks that off. When you put him in these big matchup, whether it's Klitschko, the last performance against Wilder, he just the full package. And adding the power with the Ali like skill. Um, I mean, Tyson Fury just does it all. Even if you shrink him down, I don't now. If you shrink him down, I don't think he does that to Wilder. But I think in most of these other guys on the list, if you put them at the same size with his skill set, he could still find a lot of success. So I know a lot of people don't like Fury, but I still have him top 5. Number 6, actually, I left somebody off. I think number 6, I'll put Wilder because I don't believe it's nobody else that could get past that eraser. I think he's shown the ability that in the fights like Luis Ortiz, being able to fight through the adversity. The Tyson Fury fights, even being out on his feet, being able to push through that and get a knockdown. The early fights, just being able to get the late round stuff, and starting boxing at a late age. So um, Wilder just has consistently improved. He just happened to run into another pound for pound guy that was bigger. But if you put them at the same size and at the same weight, that's why I'm an advocate for Bridgerweight, because I just think some guys are just way too big to be fighting guys that are, just naturally, in the 220s and down. I think he would definitely probably run through Tyson Fury if they were the same weight. So I actually had, when I had posted this 3 days ago, I had forgot to put Wilder, but I'll definitely put Wilder number 6, and then number 7, I'll put Caleb Plant, because for me, Caleb Plant, he checks the skill box, and he checks the how do you perform in your biggest performance. To go under those lights, not having been in that moment, and to perform the way he did, as I said earlier, he just showed it all. Only thing that I would like to see was a bit more aggressive, a bit more Marcos Maidana, and just staying focused at that end. But as far as everything else, the confidence, the being prepared for the moment, the skill level, I just don't think not many on this list will have as much success as he had against Canelo. I know a lot of other people seen it the other way and didn't think he did enough or something like that. And it's okay too. It's boxing. Number 7, I got Jermell Charlo. Uh, Being able to, let me see, what was his best performance to me? How he handled Rosario, and how Rosario handled J Rock, who handled her. I mean, 54 is just a toss up. Yeah, he had the loss to Harrison, and I didn't have him really doing too well in the second fight against Harrison, but he was able to figure out how to stay around to get it done. And that's something that we see is consistent with a lot of these top guys. They don't panic. They could be in an awkward position, they could be down, but they know how to stick around, wait you out, and strike at that right moment. Definitely want to see him take more care of his brand. Definitely want him and his brother just tone it down just a little bit. But as far as performance in the ring and in a very competitive division, looks to be the top guy, especially if he's all the way locked in. It's going to become clear because Undisputed has just been the rematch with Castano has just been named, but as of right now, I have Jamel number 7. I mean, No, I have Plant number 7 and Jermel number 8, and then Josh Taylor number 9. I really could put Josh Taylor forward, but I'll leave him number 9. I like his performance against Postal. I think he went out and did very well in that fight. I like his performance against Ruguru. Now, I was one that thought he went in there as a guy that could really box, but he banged the banger, he banged the puncher, and he outboxed the boxer in Postal, and then he whooped Ramirez. So his resume is just impressive. He's able to be versatile in banging and boxing, and that's why I'm not mad if anyone has him higher up on the list. So his undisputed is one of the, I think I would probably say, the most credible of all. As far as matchup, how far is the opponent's level away from yours? He just he's the full package for a fighter. So he just has to work on building his brand a little bit more. But as far as everything in the ring that I've seen, I like what I've seen from Josh Taylor. And because I have to switch one up because I added somebody, the last two I had was Tank and Loma. I'm gonna go with Tank Davis, still undefeated. And I think the break between this is I had Loma losing to Pedraza. I thought Pedraza outboxed Loma. I thought the commentary in that fight was very biased. We know Loma lost to Tio. We know Loma lost to Solito, and Tank handled Pedraza. And then moving up to 140, back against the wall against Barrios. Not something we're seeing consistently. These top guys, they just don't panic, figure out how to get it done. Back against the wall against Santa Cruz, taller fighter, longer reach, figure out how to get it done. One of the most spectacular knockouts we've seen. And when we talk about erasers being one of the criteria, when we talk about skill being one of the criteria, when we talk about what do you bring to boxing, bringing that Atlanta market, um, really maximizing that and bringing the people out and the black fan base. uh, when we talk about a guy that's constantly maturing and growing, not just staying in one space, may have been in one space, but you can definitely see the work on self as a person. Tank Davis is legit, has it all. Because if I said you just said that about Taylor, why would you say the same thing? Taylor don't have this type of race. So we talk generational talent, could possibly go down on that ATG list, all time great. If Tank Davis stays focused and in and out the ring and continues to move properly, it's going to be a no brainer because he has it all. I just want him to maximize his strength and conditioning. Just keep the right people around him and stay hungry. If he does that, I have no doubt that Tank will be at the top of the list at some point. Um, yeah, and that's pretty much it. Shout out to everybody for tuning in. Shout out to everybody for supporting. Um, Trap Media USA, pound for pound. I'm out.